So the title of the presentation is Got Tethers? How to Remove the Ties That Bind and Recharge Your Job Search. This is a little bit interactive. There are times, I certainly want you to put anything in the chat box that you want. And Shannon's going to read, I can't ever see the chat box when I'm presenting, so Shannon's going to read the chats if they're relevant. But there is a time when I'm going to be asking you to contribute. And so I hope that you will all do that. So, is this you? Poor guy, buffeted by the wind, hanging on for dear life. Whether this is you, realistically, since we don't live on the Gulf, I doubt that it's actually you. However, I seem to remember that last year or the year before, when Shoal Creek flooded, we did have some people that were hanging on to signposts in that very same way. But at any rate, these are strange times, and the clear thing here is that this guy is out of control. The forces that are around us, whether we're talking about climate change or politics or catastrophic illness, none of it is within our control. And you already feel sort of out of control when you don't have a job. And so this may very well be you. I can certainly relate. And so we all feel it. We all feel this. Oops, why am I frozen? There we are. All right. Some years ago, I read this. Actually, it was about 20 years ago that I read this, and I don't remember what the source was, and I don't remember the amount of time, but it was a statement that has stuck with me lo these decades. And it said, if you have been looking for a job for, and I don't remember if it was a year, if it was 9 months, I don't remember how long, but if you have been looking for a job for X amount of time without success, it is because something is holding you back. And so I remember thinking about that and thought, wow, the image that came in my brain, I'm very visual, and the image that came in my brain when I heard that or read that was, oh, that wasn't supposed to come up yet, was a hot air balloon that was tethered. And so when a hot air balloon is tethered, it is tied to the ground. So it hovers above the ground, but it's unable to fly because it's tethered. And very often, if you think of your job search as being the hot air balloon, and it's not going anywhere, it's not lifting off, you're stuck. You're just stuck. It's not working. And in some cases, you're doing everything right. You've got a good resume. You're sending it out. You might be interviewing and you're not getting offers, or you're asking people to help you and they're not helping you, and you're just stuck. It's like, I'm not going anywhere, and I don't know what else to do. And so I would assume that this resonates with some, if not all of you, that you don't get it. You don't understand it, but you definitely feel as though you have got some tethers. Sometimes people have more than one tether. They have multiple tethers. And when I thought of that, this is the image that flashed through my mind, and it was Gulliver with the Lilliputians and little tiny people who have tied up this great huge man with a number of very small ropes. Each one of them is not a big deal, but when you get enough tethers, you get enough things that bind you, you are incapable of anything. You're locked in. You're trapped. And so the more tethers that you have, the more things, the more forces that are holding you back, the more damaging it is. So what we're going to try to do in this little time that we have left is to identify what are tethers, what are the things that consciously or unconsciously are holding you back, and are there actions that you can take to sever the tethers? Now, what does zits have to do with tethers, you may ask? And the reason I love this remember junior high, remember zits, or maybe it was high school. Uh, but let me just tell you my experience with zits. You wake up in the morning and I've got this huge zit, and it's bulbous, it's ugly, it's as I say, too horrible. And I say, I'm not going to school. I have this enormous zit. And my mother says, of course you're going to school. That's ridiculous. I'm not going to school. I've got this big zit. I've got to put all this crap on it, and it just makes it worse. And it's all red, and it's ugly, and it's oozy. And I'm not going to school. Everybody's going to look at me. It's going to be too terrible. And my mother insists. And so I show up to school expecting the worst, and nobody says a thing because nobody cares. They've got their own zits. They've got their own issues. Everybody's pretty self-absorbed, and nobody cares. And lots of times that is the way problems, tethers, issues seem to us. They seem to be a major deal. They seem as though they're insurmountable. It seems as though everybody is going to notice this horrible thing about us. And nobody cares. Almost always, problem areas are bigger in our minds than they are in reality. And so as we talk about tethers, as we talk about issues, as we talk about barriers, as we talk about the things that hold us back, keep remembering that they are very often bigger in our minds than they are in reality. So let's, what I want you to do is put in the chat box, what are some of your tethers? What are some of the things that you feel are holding you back from employment? And Shannon, can you read those for us?
Fear of rejection. Isn't that just universal?
Fear, okay, yes, absolutely. Sometimes you're even afraid to apply for a job because you know that it's a stretch or whatever, and you're not gonna be able to do it. And so why knock yourself out, restructuring your resume and going to all that trouble when you know that it's useless. So you've already psychologically you've defeated yourself before you even applied. What else?
Got somebody who's like, multiple layoffs. That's fear right there too.
Okay, so you've got that in your, I assume, in your history. So short-term employment, because you keep getting laid off, and you kind of know that if you can explain it, if you get an interview, you can explain it, but are you even going to get a chance to have an interview? Possibly not, because you're afraid they're going to look at your resume and think short-term employment, they're getting laid off for a reason, so this is an unstable work history, and I'm not going to talk to them. What else is holding you back?
Oh, the next three are just all together. Negative thoughts, I'm not good enough. Another person, I'm not qualified enough. Another person, self-doubt about my technical skills and experience.
Okay, exactly. And what's so interesting about this is I dare say that when you first started off with your careers, and lots of you have had some stellar work experience, you have, but let's start even before that. Let's start with going through school. I dare say that almost all of you got very good grades. You were smart. You understood how the game is played. You study. You get good grades. You move up. You pass. You get to the next grade. You study. You get good grades. You move up. You graduate. You get into a school. You study hard. You get good grades. You've got a great GPA because you've got a good degree, you've got good training, you get a good job, you work hard, you succeed, you get good evaluations, you move up, you get more responsibility, your performance evaluations are good, and everything makes sense. And then all of a sudden, you get laid off and you're in job search mode, and it's something different. And suddenly, I tell people this all the time in the new member orientation, whether you know it or not, you have all crossed over into a parallel universe in which things are not governed by logic. Very often you are the best qualified person. You answered every question correctly. You had the best resume. And yet here you still sit coming to these meetings, whereas somebody with a fraction of your qualifications got that job that should have been your job. And it messes with your mind. And very often companies make decisions based on all kinds of crazy things. And it's not logical. And it's like, I am working hard. I am doing everything right. Why is the anticipated result not there for me? What's going on? I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe my skills aren't strong enough. Maybe I'm overqualified. They don't ever tell you why you're not hired. Maybe I was asking for too much money. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how the game is played. And so you lose confidence in yourself. And this is new probably for many of you, because the opposite of fear, and all of you were talking about being fearful, the opposite of fear is confidence. And every single time you apply for a job and you do not get interviewed, or you get interviewed and you do not get hired, it is rejection. And when you get rejected, it has a big hit to your confidence level. And so every time you get hit with confidence, with rejection, then the fear factor goes up. So if we could chart that, confidence goes down, fear goes up. And it's just a kind of a nasty cycle. And yet when you show up for an interview, you are supposed to present yourself confidently. Are you not? You were supposed to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do that job. You have to sell yourself. How can you sell yourself when you don't believe in the product and you're scared that your skills aren't going to be qualified, aren't going to qualify you? So yeah, ugly little cycle, isn't it? Talk about a big fat tether. That's a tether rope the size of your leg. Okay, what else is in the chat box?
Well, before I share another one, I just think that Robert summed it up perfectly when he wrote out F period E period A period R period fear, which apparently stands for F everything and run.
I love it. That sounds like an escapist kind of thing, but I like it.
We got somebody too old. I mean, we know that ageism is alive and well here in Austin, even though, supposedly it isn't, but it is.
Oh, it definitely is. And lots of people, this is so interesting. I hear this all the time. And some of you that are out there, you've probably been people that have told me this, where people will say, number one, I never had to look for a job before. Jobs always came to me. I was always courted out of a job that I had, and I went on to a better job. If I did get laid off, all I had to do was pick up the phone, and I got hired easily. And now I don't get it. Now I'm 50, and I don't get it. I'm not getting called. Nobody's answering my calls. I'm having to look so hard. I don't even know how to do this. And yeah, age is a factor. It sucks. And that very often what companies need is people with this proven success, people that have the wisdom of saying, oh yes, I've encountered this before, and here's the solution. You need that institutional knowledge, and you need the experience that keeps you calm in a crisis and helps you weather the storm and helps you stay on board loyally when other people are jumping ship. I mean, there's so many qualities. I've been grading homework from my ACC class currently, and there is somebody. I hope he's here in the meeting today. But I was looking at his accomplishments, and he put these accomplishments as short stories, star stories, and I am so impressed. I'm looking at these things that this guy has done, and how mature he is, and how responsible he is, and the quality of the work that he did is so impressive. And I thought, if I were hiring somebody who was a front-end developer, I would hire him from his resume, from these stories, because it's so easy to picture him in the workplace doing this fabulous stuff. And there are several of you that I saw come in that I know you are out there that are equally talented. You are senior level top performers with all kinds of credentials and accomplishments in your background. And it is inconceivable that companies are not coming to you and courting you and saying, please come work for us, because you are the people that can solve our problems. And so anyway, yes, age discrimination is rampant here. So I don't know what to tell you. It's lots of times people will look really good on paper, and as soon as they take a look at you in an interview, they won't have eye contact with you anymore, because they know they're not going to hire you. But it's not universal. We've been watching old British detective stories, and almost all of the detectives, even if they have a young person who kind of stars, the person that almost always is the one that really solves it is an older detective that has been there before and gets it. And anyway, I look at those people all the time, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's a job for somebody in his 60s. He's the best at what he does. Anyway, I digress. So what else? Age. That so sucks. What else?
We have a few people in the club who are consultants, and so when you look at their LinkedIn profiles, just at a glance, it looks like they may have they're job hoppers. How do you overcome that?
Oh, that's easy. You put down the totality of the time that you had a consultancy, even if it goes back. Let's say that one of the things we advise you to do is to create a consultancy. You don't necessarily have to, create it as a legal entity, but you probably should register a name if you want to at some point. But I mean, that's only something like $15-$20, I think, to register your name. But even if you just say, John Doe Consultancy, and you put that on there, that you've been doing that on and off from 2015 to the present. And then every time you are not working for another company, then you go back to doing these short-term consultant contracts. And so you can just put that down and say that you have this long-term consultancy. And you, if I see on a resume that somebody's been a consultant, then I say, well, tell me some of the projects that you worked on as a consultant. And so you have to make sure that you have at least a couple different companies or individuals that you've helped. One time I asked that somebody was saying he was a consultant and he hadn't worked in 2 years. And I said, oh, I see the last 2 years you've been a consultant. What are some of the companies you've worked for, or projects that you've done? And he just got all nervous and kind of went white on me and said, well, I've mostly just been, setting it up. And I'm thinking, really? You've been setting it up for 2 years? So you need to have something under there. But sure, if you've got some short-term jobs, say that you were contracted to solve a problem. You went on board to solve a problem, and this is what you did. You were involved in this project, and then that was finished, and then you went to another one. But you don't ever have to give the dates of those individual projects or short-term contracts. You just say consultancy, and then the total dates that encompass that whole time when you were self-employed, essentially. Does that answer your question?
I would hope so. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm going to have David Villarreal. I would like for you to come on and kind of better explain yours, because you said no perfect fit available. So I don't mean that you're not perfect fit or they're looking for a unicorn, et cetera, et cetera. But I figured maybe you can better explain, what your question is there.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, either there's the fear that there's not going to be a job that you're going to be happy with, that suits your needs and that your skill set fits, and that it's something you want to do.
Okay. And as Shannon said, it can go both ways. Where sometimes you find a job posting and it's got such a long list of requirements that you you think no one person could possibly have all of that. It's got to be a wish list. But it is a way that they can exclude you if they don't want you. We do encourage you that if you have roughly 75% of the listed requirements, that you go ahead and apply, because it is unrealistic that they would find one person with all of those skills. So if you have most of them, go ahead and apply. And it may be that you're still the best qualified of all the people who reach out to them. Now, if you don't find a job that's the right job for you, these days, with many more job seekers than there are posted jobs, you might want to take it or apply for it anyway, even if it's not what you're looking for or not exactly what you're looking for, in order to either, number one, get your foot in the door with a company that you're interested in and you're willing to start as an employee at that company, and then once you get in the door, move around to something that's a better fit for your skills, or take something and learn everything you can there to have an income while you ride out what's going on right now. You get an income and you get benefits, and you do the very best job you can while you're there. You learn everything you can. You get the new tools, and you meet new people with whom to network, and you leave that job when something better comes along, and you've left that job in better shape than it was when you first got hired. So these days, can you afford to be picky when there are so many other things so many other people out there looking? I don't know. I don't think anybody is going to fault you if they see on your resume that during this time period that you took some jobs that were off from what you normally do, or that were a step back career-wise from what you normally do. I don't think anybody faults you for taking something in order to survive and to support your family. Years ago, back during the dot-com bust, I don't know how many of you were unemployed then. That was in about 2001, 2002. We had I can't remember if it was 36,000 or 38,000 unemployed tech people in Austin, but it was an enormous disaster. And right when things started to get a little bit better, 9/11 happened, and everything that was on the table slid off the table. And I remember we had a really good speaker who was an executive coach, and usually did not pay any attention to the Launchpad kinds of people who were not all of them were C-level people. We have some, of course, who are executives, but he did, and he spoke, and somebody said that what he had been doing in order to survive was delivering the newspaper. And he said, that is my most recent job, but I'm afraid that if I put it on as my, the top of my work experience, that everybody's just going to throw it away. They won't look below that to see all of the great work experience that I have. What do you think? Should I leave it off and just make it seem as though I've got a big gap there? And there was a big discussion on that. And what the executive coach eventually said was, if I look at a resume and I see that this is a person, I see from the summary paragraph, I see from the maybe from the accomplishments that are listed at the top of the resume, and then I go down to work history, and which is below that, and I see delivering the newspaper, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy's getting up at 3:00 in the morning to have an income to support his family while he's looking for a job. And he's thinking that shows a work ethic, that shows fortitude, that shows flexibility, that shows lots of admirable qualities. I want to hire somebody like that. So waiting around for the perfect match right now, when it's an employer's market, may not be a smart idea, but it's a personal choice. So, but keep in mind that job postings very often are not particularly realistic. Sometimes they just keep adding on new skills to existing job postings, and you get to the interview and you find that the job posting was not reflective of what they're really looking for at all. That's another reason why getting a job through networking, through knowing somebody, is almost always the wise idea. Any other tethers in the box?
Oh my gosh, so many. One of them from RD is there's so much energy spent into the void, but I'd like to add my 2 cents onto that. I know you guys spend a lot of time, filling out long applications. And the other thing is you get ghosted by recruiters. Having my first job out of school being for a staffing company, believe me when I say it's not you, it's them. Because they have so much pressure on them. They have bosses too. So they're hiring managers that are saying, why isn't this filled? Where are my candidates? Da, 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 da. And you know that somebody was loving on you last week going, I'm getting you that interview next week, I promise. And then you never hear from them again. And as rude as it is, which I think it is, they have just had to move on because somebody else was that unicorn that just better fit. But I know it leaves you feeling very, very despondent. And why was it me? Was it my age? Was it my breath? They couldn't even get through Zoom. But it's not you, it's them. So just that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. There is a lot of pressure. We get Gary O'Neill. It works both ways, which is what is so frustrating. So Gary O'Neill is a recruiter that is a frequent speaker to Launchpad, and he's been for years and years and years. And one time he has, several times he's actually talked about the concept that waiting is not a job search strategy. And he says, after you submit a resume, you then need to, wait a day or so and then reach out to the recruiter that posted the job and say, I just applied for this job and I'm very interested in it, and I'd like to meet with you for coffee, or I'd like to have a conversation with you and see if we can set up an interview. I feel as though I'm really well qualified for this job. And you follow up with every single resume you send out. And he used as an illustration, he said at the time he was trying to find people to fill a job for some kind of technical thing. I don't remember what it was. And he said that he went through LinkedIn and he came up with 50 matches, and he sent out emails to 35 people, and he said, here's this job that we're trying to fill, and if you're interested in it, send me your resume. And at the bottom he has his name and his phone number and his email address. And so he said, I sent out 35 emails like that, and he said, guess how many people called me to follow up? Well, it was one. And he said, I'm having coffee with this guy right after the meeting. And he said, always follow up. And I'm thinking that might be great for you as long as one person calls you. But if you have 35 people that call up and say, let's have coffee because I want to talk to you about this job, he may not be ready for that. And we certainly have heard from other recruiters who've said that they are, their hair's on fire is the term they always use. My hair's on fire and I don't have time to talk. I've got to just look at your resume and pass you through and see where it goes. And then very often, as they've said, they end up with the company says, well, we ended up hiring internally, or, the CEO has his own candidate that he wants in this job, or whatever. So things just go by the wayside and you're never informed. So it is a madhouse. It's like moving from the countryside to LA and being on those interstates. How do you get on? How do you get in? How do you keep up with the flow? How do you get to your destination of getting a job? Anyway, so yeah, I feel you. I think we've got time for a few more if there's anybody else that wants to vent in the chat box.
No, they vented. I think these two can kind of go together. There are better candidates out there, or imposter syndrome.
Better candidates. So one is that you're not qualified, or you are afraid you're not qualified. And the imposter syndrome is similar, where you doubt yourself. You feel that if you present yourself as a viable candidate for this job opening, that they're going to find out that your skills aren't as good as they need, or perhaps your skills are not as good as as you think they are. And so you are not worthy. And keep in mind that the way that they test is often not reflective of your skill set, especially for developer jobs, where they say, go to the board and write some code. And you're supposed to write out code and talk to them about your thought process as you write out this code. Whereas if you could just sit down at a computer, the muscle memory and that's your little happy place, and you would be able to dash off that code in no time. But when you have to go to a board and write it out, then you don't remember anything, and plus there's pressure, and plus you're supposed to be talking, and so they say, I'm sorry, you flunked the practical test on this. And it's like, yeah, no doubt. And lots of times there are those kinds of things where you could come up to speed very quickly. You could learn it. You've always picked up new technology. Every company you've ever worked for had proprietary software that you had to learn. You could do it. You're capable. You're smart, but they don't give you the opportunity because you are not perfect. And so then you're struggling to keep up. So yeah, it's important, I think, that while you're looking for a job, that you try to keep learning, keep adding, keep your skills sharp in different things. If you, one person that I use all the time, just because he's the top of my mind, he went on Coursera, and he was already, I think he was, I shouldn't even say, I was going to say he's a technical writer, but I don't remember what he was. But he wanted to learn a new software, which was Python. And he felt that having that skill would make him more marketable. So he went on Coursera and he got a certification in Python. And then, because that was just online, it wasn't a whole lot of hands-on stuff, he joined the Python user group, which is a meetup. And there were so many people that attended the first session that he went, that they divided it up into new users, the group that he was in, and experienced users. And many of the experienced users were currently working using Python. And so in that group, he met one of the experienced people who was working for a local company. That guy introduced him to his boss, and he ended up getting a job with that person. And so it's important that you keep all of these things in mind. When you're unemployed, you have got to be working on your skills. You have to be learning things. These days, it's very easy to go online and learn things. And I completely understand how important it is. It's the time issue. When are you going to have time to really study something online? It's got to be something that you schedule in that's got a top priority. I've been trying to do some learning online myself for all of these months, and I have made very little headway because I've got other things that I give priority to. So yeah, but keeping your skills up is always very important.
I know you teach a class on this. We have a template for it in the weekly newsletter, but it's the pain of getting your resume past the applicant tracking systems.
Okay. Actually, the template that we have in the newsletter, it is a template that one recruiter likes. I have a lot of problems with that template. It is counter to what practically all other books, web seminars, experts recommend. For example, it's got the word objective on it, which drives me crazy because that is something that they have said we shouldn't have on a resume for the last, 25 years or something. That it makes your resume look like a leisure suit of a resume. But that woman was a very effective speaker, and she said, this is what I like to see on a resume. But I have to tell you, I think she was just speaking for herself. But at any rate, it's in there. There is a tool, and it's JobScan. And that's exactly what our satellite class is about this afternoon from 2 to 4. So I hope, whoever you are, that you will come to that class. JobScan is a platform where you paste your resume on one side of the screen. You paste the job posting that you're going after on the other side of the screen, and JobScan does a keyword scan very similar to what happens when your resume goes through an applicant tracking system. And in fact, if you are able to, on the JobScan, put down the name of the company and the URL where that job was posted, it will say, this company uses Taleo, or this company uses ICIMS, or this company uses Bamboo, and it knows which ATS system the company uses, and it will score your resume based on the requirements of those individual or respective ATS systems. And it gives you a score. And often, even if you think you have targeted that resume to that job, your initial score is somewhere between 25 and 50%. And JobScan will say, we advise that you not apply for this job with this resume until you can get your score up to 80%. And here are the keywords that are missing from your resume that you need to populate throughout your resume in order to, and then you can rescan it and rescan it and rescan it until you get your score up to 80. And they believe at that point it will get through the applicant tracking system. And so we teach that. I have a coach's version of JobScan, and so you can send me your resume and the job posting, and I can scan things for you for free. There is a free membership of JobScan, but it only gives you 5 free scans a month. And so, and if you like them on Facebook, you can get some more free scans. There are other things you can do to get free scans. But you can also, if you've used up all your free scans, you can send it to me. If you go through the class that I announced at ACC, so the next class is going to start August 17th, I think. And it goes on for 4 weeks, two 2-hour classes each week for 4 weeks. And during, excuse me, during the 4 weeks of class plus the following week, so that's 5 weeks, you will have a premium subscription to JobScan for attending that class. And if you use JobScan a lot, we will continue that subscription. We will, if you're really using it, we will not kick you off JobScan after 5 weeks. One Launchpad person has done something like 268 job scans. And so as long as she keeps scanning, I'll keep her on that premium list. You don't have to pay for it. If you have to pay for it yourself, it's pretty pricey. But at any rate, there's also a trick. It can take a couple hours to populate all those keywords throughout your resume. But one of our members created a trick that'll get your score up to 80 relatively quickly. And she has just written a book that talks about that, which is due to come out in softcover very, very shortly. I'm going to buy a bunch. She says all kinds of nice things in there about Launchpad. But at any rate, so that will teach you that this afternoon in the class as well, if you want to come. So I hope you do. Okay, let's move on. And if we have more tethers to talk about at the end of the time, we'll try to do that. But thank you for all your input. That was great. So the next slide is, this is a list of tethers that I thought of, and some of them are things that you mentioned already. One is Austin. Who would have thought that Austin is a tether? But there are so many people that want to live in Austin or have to live in Austin. They've got, a spouse who's in school, or they've got, they have a house here. They have, they're rooted here, and they know that they can no longer afford Austin. If only they could move to another place, they could probably find a job. The industry in which they were working is no longer a viable industry, but they will not leave Austin. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Family is also a tether. If only you could, work this shift, but you can't because of family, or you have family within the home that needs you, or you've got family that you have to stay here for. But family can be a tether of different sorts. It could be that you are so solidly entrenched in your industry that you cannot see yourself anywhere else. You are, you're a chip person. That's all you know. You are an IC layout designer, and your industry, you're going to stay in Austin in spite of the fact that there are hardly any jobs in your industry for you, because you don't know anything else. That's the only thing you know. It's like people that are, they're coal miners. That's all they know. And so they are trapped. They are locked into this industry that is no longer really viable for them. And so the industry is sometimes a tether. Sometimes people will absolutely refuse to take any other kind of job or any job that is a lower level than what they had before. We had last year, I guess it was, we had a man whose previous job was a senior VP. And he ended up taking a job that was something like a regional manager. So title-wise, it was a huge step down. But he said responsibility-wise and money-wise, it was a big step up. And he was now going to be in charge of all of the like 6 states in the Southwest Territory or something like that. So it was an immensely responsible job with a ton of money, but the title made it appear less. I've seen people who say, I'm not going to do it. I worked hard to get up to this level, to be in the C-suite, and I'm not going to take anything less. Well, flexibility is a competency, and sometimes if you stubbornly stay, will not consider anything other, then it becomes a tether. You are bound because you will not consider an alternative. Same with salary, that you won't consider a lower salary. Even in times like these, there are people who say, I'm not taking less than this high salary because I'm worth it. And you may be, but it could be that if you are intransigent about considering other things, then it could just be that you will have to look longer. You may get the salary you want. You may get the title you want. You may find a job in your industry. You may find a wonderful job in Austin. But it could be that if you are too intransigent about some of these things, that you will have to look longer. I hope not, but maybe. Okay, so all of those that are yellow, that are have 1 star, are ties that bind. And I love that phrase because it's a play on words. It has 2 different meanings. And so a tie is, or a tie that binds, that phrase, a tie that binds is a shared belief. And historically, a tie that bound you to other people was a shared belief, or a culture. And so you were connected to people. You were bound to these people. There was a bond that connected you to these people, and it was a good thing. There was a famous that whole "Let the Circle Be Unbroken." That is a tie that binds, and it's part of it is music that binds all of these people together with this commonality that they have. But the word bind also means somebody that is restricted. They're constricted. They're bound. You bind somebody's feet to keep their feet from growing. And so this good thing that bonds you to other people or other cultures can also be thought of as something that confines you and restricts you and keeps you from growing. And I think it's such an interesting play on words. Then the 2 star ones are the ones that are in purple or magenta or whatever. And that is the tether of age, bad references, and criminal background. And all of those things are things that you cannot change. We're going to talk about how do you minimize them. as tethers? How do you make them be, slim little threads that are not going to bind you too much, but they're things that you really can't change. And then all of the kind of turquoise ones: appearance, skills, no network, fear, negativity, and the whole concept of being overwhelmed. All of those are characteristics that you can impact, that you can fix, that you can lessen, that you can mitigate, that you can make better. So we're going to talk about it. All right. For the ties that bind, the antidote for that is to just open up your freaking mind and consider other options. I talked about tethers about 20 years ago, and there was a man there who said he had never considered getting a job. This was during the dot-com bust. And he said he had never considered working any place other than Austin. But he said the situation was so bad that maybe he should open up his range somewhat. So he talked to his wife, and they decided that he was going to expand his search, maybe to other states even. And so he started to do that, started to apply for jobs in other states. If they got one, they were going to just rent out their house for maybe 5 years, 10 years. I can't remember how old he was. And then when he retired, then they'd come back here where their roots were. And as soon as he started applying to other places, all of a sudden he got a job at ACC, and he was in charge of facilities maintenance for the entire campuses, all their huge system. So whatever that is, 11 campuses, and he was in charge. And so it was a great job. He loved it, and he stayed on it until he finally retired. Another person that did the very same thing, he decided to expand his territory. And so when he went to California for a wedding, he applied for several jobs in California, and one of them he got was for a VP of sales. And they offered it to him, and they were going to pay for relocation. And when they started looking at what they were going to have to pay him for cost of living, and for lots of times companies would give you points on a house in California because housing was so expensive. They said, listen, you can stay in Austin. We'll give you this salary, which was substantial. And you can stay in Austin, and once a quarter, we'll fly you to California. So, just open your mind to other possibilities. Just to think about, could I work in a different industry? Could I teach my skill? Maybe if I just go into education and I teach what I know, I can teach other people who will then go other places and to other little chip companies or whatever. So open your mind to other possibilities, because those tethers are binding you and keeping you from really truly succeeding. So back to the list of tethers again. The next one are the purple ones. So just to see what they are, and I'm going through them one by one. I'm just going to give you some really quick things that might be a quick fix. If age is an issue because you're old, number one, and I've given a whole hour presentation on this, so you're getting 2 minutes. Do not talk like an old person. Do not say, well, back in my day. Do not say, I just saw on somebody's resume that they had over 40 years experience in programming. Do not do that, because most of those years are irrelevant and obsolete. It's not helpful. It's not helpful. You probably have 10, 15 years of really good marketable experience. Talk about those. We had a guy who in a mock interview said, I worked on computers when they were the size of this room. Who says that? Really old people who are not living in current reality. Do not talk like an old person. It just separates you from relevance in so many ways. Improve your technical skills. I don't care what you do. You can get more technical skills. You can learn more software. You can be working on projects in GitHub. You can be experimenting with new stuff. You can check out mobile apps. You can do some things that are relevant and timely so that you have something to talk about. And you have to have an attitude in which you embrace change. You've got to be open to all kinds of new things, and don't poo-poo them just because they're new and different and you don't like them. You got to fit. If you're experiencing age discrimination because you're young, it's important that you establish and talk up a good work ethic, and that you understand the importance of being reliable, dependable, being to work on time. You have a lot that you can teach your coworkers, and you have a lot that you can learn from coworkers. And don't forget that mentoring goes both ways. All right. We're up to this one. If you have bad references, first thing to do is to check with HR and ask, what do you tell companies when they call for a reference? What information do you give out? Chances are they are going to say they only talk about dates of employment and what your job title was. Sometimes companies will say whether or not you're eligible for rehire, but not all of them will do that. Sometimes ask if they have a policy where supervisors are allowed to give references, or if it's only HR. Good companies will make sure that supervisors do not, because they make mistakes that are sometimes legally costly. So make sure that you know exactly what they're going to say if you were fired, or if you had a performance improvement plan or whatever. When you're talking about why you left that job, you want to be honest. You want to spin it in a positive way. No details. Do not get caught giving details. You'll be in the weeds talking about this negative situation for a long time. I can help you practice something that's just skimming over the top of this situation and putting a positive spin on it the whole way. If you do get into the fact that there were some issues, lesson learned, and then you want to see if you can network in that company instead of having to rely on your resume or reference checks. See if you know somebody inside the company that's going to say what a great person you are. When somebody tells me that they've been fired, I usually say, how long were you there? And almost always it falls into two categories. One is people who were at a company for a very long time. And I say, oh, let me guess. Everything was great. You loved your company. You were moving up always, very positive performance evaluations. You knew that you felt that was going to be the last company you ever worked for. You loved it. And then all of a sudden they brought in somebody new. They made lots of changes. All of a sudden you started getting bad performance evaluations. You got written up, and then you got let go. Gee, how did you know? Because it happens all the time. And all you have to say is, as you can see, I was there for a very long time with an excellent work history. We brought in some new folks who decided that they wanted to make some changes. I think they really wanted to reorg so they could bring in their own people. They were more comfortable with them, and that certainly is their prerogative. But it was a great ride while it lasted, and I'm looking forward to my next adventure. So you just always want to be positive no matter what it was. Do not belabor it. And then if you were there a really short time and you got fired, then I say, that marriage was annulled. That was a job that I was really excited about. I thought it was going to be terrific. And day one, I could see that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It really was a bad fit for me from the get-go. And I gave it my best shot. I hoped that I could at least hit some home runs and succeed. But I knew that I wouldn't stay there. It was really, by the time I left, it was kind of a mutual agreement that it just wasn't a good fit. So I learned a lesson, and I'm excited about this job. Something where you don't go into a lot of detail. All right, criminal history. I worked with people coming out of prison for a very long time, and the same thing. If you have to answer yes to a criminal question on an application, then you have to be prepared to discuss what happened and be honest, be very sort of skim over the top of it. You're going to say, I listened to some bad advice. I made some huge mistakes. I was young and stupid. This is what I did. This is what it cost me. And this is what it taught me. I am never going back that path again. And if you hire me, I swear you will not regret that decision. While I was in, I learned all of these skills. I'm ready to go. I've been tested. I've gotten certifications, and I'm ready to start over. And I would love to contribute to your company. Something positive, where you put this bad stuff behind you. And again, if you know somebody on the inside of a company who will speak on your behalf, that's golden. Okay, to remind you of the other ones over which you have control. So we're going to start with appearance. Rather than talk to you about everything about appearance, I think it would be interested to experiment with very small lifestyle changes, something really doable. And I think the biggest factor of appearance is exercise. That people who exercise regularly have a certain look. Their bodies have a certain look. Their gait, their walk, their posture looks better. They have more energy. And I think that maybe for a month, if you try to go to bed early, and this is definitely as do as I say and not as I do. I didn't sleep at all last night, which is why I'm kind of dopey. But go to bed early and get up early. And first thing, try to exercise for 30 to 60 minutes. And exercise can be taking a walk. I have a really good-looking brother, younger brother who's an attorney, who is kind of he looks fabulous. He looks about 20 years younger than he is. And when pre-COVID, he would get up at, I think he got up at 3:30 every morning for years and years and years. Or maybe he got up at 4. And by 4:30, he was at the gym, and he was at the gym for an hour. And now that the gym is closed, he gets up, I think at the same time, and goes out and walks in the hills around San Diego for an hour and a half or something like that. But boy, it shows. He looks fabulous. So try it for a month and just see if those two little changes, go to bed early, get up early, exercise. Doesn't have to be heavy duty exercise. See if it does anything. See if people don't say, wow. And then in terms of skills, everybody has got to keep using their time of unemployment to improve their skills. And it's so easy to do it for free. There's a whole list on the Launchpad website under resources of maybe 20, maybe 2 dozen different online places that you can go for training. Lynda.com is certainly one. You can do it for free get it for free through the Round Rock Library, or get it for free. If you don't want to go to Round Rock, you can get it for free through the Houston Library. You can get a Houston Library card, which comes with a free Lynda.com subscription, and just do all of that online. There's Coursera, and there's Udemy. Those are my 3 faves, but there are lots of other ones as well. But get smarter so that you can put more and more skills on your resume. And if you're going to try to take actual classes, don't forget to check out the government-funded grant programs that are available through Workforce Solutions. Talk to them. They'll give you $7,000 toward a certification. Research classes, research schools, research the cost, research whether there's a market for those skills before you spend any money of your own. Okay. Then we've got Austin is a who do you know town. And so it's really, really important that you build your network. Any of you who have moved to Austin from other places, networking is so much more difficult when we're all virtual. If you should definitely network with everybody who is a speaker. You go to a webinar, reach out to the speakers and say, I heard your webinar, very impressed, please connect with me. If there are other people at those webinars and you get their names and they ask intelligent questions, or they bring up important concepts, or their comments are wise, reach out to them and say, I was really impressed with your comments during that webinar. I would love to connect with you. I've recently moved to Austin from Blair. Whatever. Connect. And every time you connect, explain who you are and why you want to connect, and say, I've got some time, would love to meet with you virtually and see how we can help each other. It's got to be a two-way street. Use LinkedIn to connect with former coworkers. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll cover that today in the LinkedIn class, how you find people that you used to work with and see where they're working now, reach out to them, connect with them, and look up their job postings where they're working and see if they'll help you. Even people you've just met or read about, you read about them in the paper, in the business journal, in the Chronicle, and they've written something that you're impressed with, a letter to the editor even. Look them up and connect. Connect with recruiters and people who work at your target companies. If you don't know how to do that on LinkedIn, I'll show you that in today's class as well. People in your tribes. You have more tribes than you know of. Tribes can be people who graduated from the same school you did. We've seen people get interviews because they're tapping into those resources. Obviously, people that worked in your company. Meet your neighbors. We started a thing called a 10-foot happy hour on Friday afternoons, and people meet in my yard, and if we have too many, they meet in the next yard, but it's people from the neighborhood, and so we stay far apart, but I've met people who have lived with me in my neighborhood for 20 years, and I never knew them until COVID shelter in place. But you share information with people, and you never know who's going to know somebody. One of our people got a great job with the state by striking up a conversation with one of the other soccer moms. She had never talked about anything other than students, than kids, until that game. And she started talking about her job search. And her husband, she said, my husband works at that company where you're going to interview tomorrow. Come over and he'll tell you about the company. And she got a great job. And then volunteer. I don't know exactly how you volunteer these days at some places, but volunteering is beneficial in so many ways. But one of them is that you are going to interact with people that you never would have met otherwise. So call up these nonprofits. Try to volunteer in a place where it's related to your job if you can. So like Lead to Success, for example. All right, enough of that. That's this one, I think. Oh, okay. Is that all of them? Oh, fear and negativity. All right, fear and negativity. Remember that you are fearful or you are negative because you have reacted in that way. And you are totally in charge of that. And so learn to control how you react to things. Some people are just born somewhat positive, and some people are born with a predisposition toward negativity. And I kind of live with somebody like that. So I get it that that's just sort of how you are. But think about actions you can take to minimize those things. Number one, listen to the news only once a day, and listen to news that comes from a respected news source. My little A thing makes it seem as though you could listen to non-respected news sources otherwise, but only to the respected one once a day. But I mean, only listen to the news once a day. So many people are just totally bummed out and depressed because there is no good news. It's all bad. So listen to a news source that you trust and that is respected, but only listen once a day. You got to know what's going on, but you don't have to listen to it 24/7 to where you think that that's all that's going on. Try to avoid negative people. Surround yourself with the most positive, upbeat, supportive, interesting people you possibly can. By the way, I forgot to tell you earlier in the meeting, but if you will text me, and I think my phone number is in the chat room somewhere or another, text me your ideas for how you stay positive, things that help you stay upbeat. And I reward the 2 that I think are the best ideas, and those people get a $20 gift card to HEB. And so the two that I put in the panacea for this week, one was riding a bike, which is outside and energy and exercise and good for you. But it also, we talked about riding a bike to look at the self-guided Black History tour of UT, which was fascinating. And you can do it by just going into the link and doing it online. I went through the whole tour sitting in my bedroom. So there was no exercise involved, but it was still historically, oh my gosh, it was mind-blowing. But learning more about the city, exploring different things, lots of things are positive. Send it to me and see if you can get a gift card. At the end of the day, write down every day in a journal 3 good things that happened or 3 things that you are grateful for. This has been scientifically proven that number 1, if you will journal, and number 2, if you will list every day things that you're grateful for, that it generates all kinds of positive juices, hormones, chemicals in your body and makes you more happy, more optimistic, and all of that leads to a long and happy life. So 3 good things. How hard could that be? Watch, hear, read positive motivational TED Talks, tapes, videos, comedies on TV. Instead of watching British murder mysteries, in which case you think that everybody is killing each other in Great Britain, watch comedies. Be happy. Be lighthearted. Watch things that are feel good, where people loved each other and agreed with each other and got along with each other before we all got crazy and polarized. Every day, try to do one small thing to either help another person, to help your city, to help your state, to help your country, or to help the world. One small thing where you're helping somebody with no thought of recompense. Smile, just smile, and smile as often as you think about it. Smile, smile, smile. And then I say try for constantly, but I'm just kidding. But smile. It's amazing what that does when you're really feeling bad. Just smile. I hope all of you are smiling right this minute. Are you smiling? I hope so. Humor me. Humor. Listen to funny things so that you're laughing. Laughing is even better than smiling. Okay, I think we are done. Is that our last thing? Oh, overwhelmed. All right, overwhelmed. We're back. We started with that guy hanging off the signpost who was overwhelmed. And many people dealing with job search during these weird times feel overwhelmed. I listened to a podcast by the chancellor of Austin Community College yesterday, and he interviewed 1 instructor and 3 students. And one of the students was a girl who lives in Elgin, and she has 3 children whom she is homeschooling right now because they're all virtual. And she's trying to go to school, and she works, and she runs an animal rescue program out of her house. And she was so upbeat and positive and cheerful on that podcast that I just thought, wow, how is that even possible? And she was talking about juggling computer use with all of these kids and the timing. And people are amazing. They are resilient, and they are creative and inventive and fabulous. And so are all of you. And so anyway, I understand the overwhelming thing, but think about this. The most valuable commodity you have is time. Spend it, what you have, on the people that you care about. That is more important than chores. That is more important than a lot of little tedious things that you do in the job search. Spend your time on the people that you care about. They are more important. Every time you think of something that you have to do, this is a trick that I'm starting to use. write it down on a whiteboard. And at the day's end, you look at the whole long list and you identify 1 to 3 things that you absolutely have to and will do the following day, and 1 to 3 things that are your like B things that you hope that you will do the following day. And then you make sure that you do those 1 to 3 things that you must do. Before you go to bed, you have to do those things that you have identified are the highest priority. Got to do them. Ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Give your kids tasks that they can do to help you out. Give your spouse tasks that that person can do to help you out. Don't worry about asking help even of your neighbors, of your friends, of your network. And then whatever you do, especially with children, make it fun. We used to do sockball tournaments where they'd have to fold up their socks after laundry day, and I put a masking tape line on the floor. They had to stand behind that line and try to throw their socks into the sock drawer and get points for those. And anyway, that was a big contest. That was a big thing. All right, go outside. Just get outside. Problems seem smaller when the world is bigger. Breathe. Pretend you have a dog and you have to go walk the dog twice a day. And get outside and walk around the block. I don't care that it's hot. Stay in the shade. Walk around. Come back in. Boom. You'll feel better. Breathe, and not just breathe like normal breathing. Breathe big, full, all the way to the belly. Breaths. Poke out that belly that you've been sucking in all day. And when you get that much oxygen in your body cannot help but relax. It just relaxes. So do those things when you feel all tense. And if you need social services, Aunt Bertha is a wonderful website. You go into it, you put in your zip code, and it gives you about a dozen different categories. Do you need help with food? Do you need help with shelter? Do you need help with clothing? Do you need help with jobs? Do you need help with counseling? Do you need legal assistance? Do you need, I can't remember what anything else is, but there's a bunch of them. And then it lists all the different resources and criteria for all of those different things that are there to help you. But please, please, please don't go without. Contact me if you've got some huge need. Let's see if I can use my network to help you out in some way. So I hope that you will no longer, at least you have a methodology for getting yourself into the air, tetherless, onto employment in the most positive way possible.